Welcome back.
Oh, hey, it's me.
It's Mark. Welcome back. It's Mark. It's
What's
Mark
up?
Z. It's Worlds 2022, and we've got Mark Z. We've got 7 games under our belt here already. We have one final play-ins match for the day, and it features our reigning MSI champions in RNG. And we got to highlight just how fierce play-ins, are, considering this is one of the teams in this competition.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. But they are the 4th seed of the LPL,
Yep.
which hasn't dominated play-in in the past. It's just the manner in which they got here, winning MSI, going 13-3 in the summer split, then losing the first best of 5 they played against EDG. Then they managed to qualify here through the regional qualifier. They just, to me, they feel incredibly strong, but they had, I think, bad meta read for playoffs. If they have a bad meta read again, they wouldn't necessarily be as strong. I just see them personally as an extremely, extremely strong team.
Yeah, and the change is, of course, Breathe coming in for this lineup in summer. They were someone that this team targeted, someone they wanted to believe in, and I think he's looked pretty good overall. There's been some hit or miss moments, but he's obviously someone who has a tremendous upside.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna mostly lean on you for this segment because Jet is so in the Kool-Aid of RNG
I've
at
said
this
a
point.
lot.
His entire crystal ball predictions
Oh,
is
I heard-
RNG,
yeah.
Breathe for unique pick, all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, I take everything Jet says with a grain of salt.
So-
but no, in actuality, most people think that this team should absolutely go undefeated and be the 1st seed out of this group. Probably the most dangerous game is this one here today, where they go up against DRX from the LCK.
Yeah, and of course, I'm subbing in because, spoilers, Lyric is going on to cast as the LPL representative.
It was going to be a surprise, but Mark ruined it for
Yeah,
you
well,
all, so.
I wanted to explain why I'm here, and that I'm not here to, counter the RNG hype.
Yeah.
'Cause you kind of position-
No, we figured for LPL LCK it'd be perfect to bring 3 NA guys.
Not because we took the LPL guy and put him on the cast. I just wanted to clarify that. DRX, though, to talk about them for a moment, it was a very back-and-forth battle for them to make it here going up against Live Sandbox, as well as the fact that Juhan came in for Pyosik and took over that entire series.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good when you saw Pyosik struggling in the playoffs. So the fact that it sounds like they're going to start Pyosik in this first game
Confirmed.
is very surprising, I think, to a lot of fans.
So, yeah, it is a very interesting move. You've got to imagine there's something up their sleeves, or they feel something very specific about this matchup, lends to Pyosik being, the right choice in the jungle. But let's just talk about how these teams, kind of match up, or again, how you evaluate looking at both of these teams, maybe in isolation, Jet.
Yeah, absolutely. The 2 4 seeds from the region aren't necessarily created equal. Actually, in years past, I would say that LCK 4th seed has outperformed LPL 4th seed, like last year when Hanwha, the 4th seed from LCK, made it to quarterfinals, and LNG, the 4th seed from LPL, did not make it through to quarterfinals. But here, it's you just look at the summer split. DRX was 9-9. They had junglers swapping in and out. They scraped their way to Worlds, whereas RNG were the MSI champions, a combined spring and summer record of something crazy good. Quick math, 25-7 in their best
No one's
of
checking
series.
it.
I didn't check it. So I believe you.
Doubling down, 25-7.
Doubling
Yeah.
down.
If he's wrong, don't tweet at him.
Yeah, just
Let him live in bliss.
Just so dominant and also very experienced as well. So there's a tiny bit of stress of having to be in play-in. But for them, I feel like they're not realistically thinking that they won't make it through to group stage. So this could be used as an advantage for them to get an earlier read on the Worlds meta and hit group stage running.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is obviously there's names like Deft on the side of DRX, but in terms of recent performance, the fact that they had just won spring, Xiaohu is, the winningest LPL player basically ever with 5 titles, 3 MSI titles. He's the king of spring for a reason, and to have him in play-ins this early just feels insane.
Now, at the top of the day, we had some interesting statistics about these 2 different regions' performances, particularly in group stages of Worlds. Mark, we did a little bit of extra digging though, around specifically how these 2 regions match up against each other.
I think that's the big thing for me about this matchup is the regional rivalry. These 2 have been at each other's throat basically since the dawn of League Esports, but for a while, the first 6 years, it was very heavily in favor of the LCK. And then since 2018, LPL has actually gotten the better of them. This is all-time game score. So this includes some series that are 3-2s and whatnot. And we talked about how, LCK, usually gets best of 1s down, but it is still very close.
That's amazing.
If my poor eyesight did me right. It was only a 1-game separation, though.
1 to 24.
So here's my question. I know we haven't been doing predictions all day, but here's my question. Do we even it up right here?
No,
or does
sir.
LPL extend one more to 25 and 23, Jat?
I'm not taking the bait.
Okay, fine. He's going with RNG.
Yes, sir.
As we know, it'll be 25 and to 23 at the end of this game. The teams are ready to go. So let's head on over to that TriCast as promised. This quick shot. It's Lyric and it's Goldborg.
Thank you so much, Sir Dashington. For the first time in our collective professional careers, we have a TriCast with Lyric, Goldborg, and myself. Gentlemen, come on, fist bump here. Fa-la-la-la-la. You get it? Nice. All right.
Speaker of six, yeah, you get it,
Let's
yeah?
turn our
Look.
attention to DRX versus RNG. Lyric, welcome to the Caster Desk. What are you expecting for draft? What are you expecting about the teams? I definitely want to break down how these teams have performed regionally versus what we see in game once we get there. Before that, picks and bans.
I'm definitely expecting better things from RNG than we saw in the split because the meta didn't favor them. So coming into this draft, right, we've seen things like Kai'Sa all day long. Everyone knows Kai'Sa, you know, Gala may be a little bit known for it. Engage support,
Just a little bit.
going to be huge for Ming as well. So I feel like RNG are in a pretty good spot coming into planes and also coming into this matchup against DRX specifically.
Yeah, I feel like just looking at that bot lane matchup is probably where most people are going to be having their eyes, having seen, you know, Deft back as well. And that's usually just what you usually mention with DRX. It just goes Deft, Deft, Deft. And he is going to be a pivotal player because he is one of the guys you're going to be relying on if you want to take down a powerhouse like RNG. Because just from DRX alone, they are the only team at the World Championship who's made it to the World Championship with a net below 50% win rate.
Now, that is a statement and a half. That is a statement and a half. I want to see whether or not, what level DRX is going to be bringing to this game. I want to just briefly bounce back to that Gala point, because I know Jat was a big fan of Gala earlier today. On
Honestly, that desk was way too RNG biased for me, Trev. That's why I came up here.
Perspective. It was the RNG perspective that you were telling. But Gala's most played
You
champion
should
is
have put
Kai'Sa.
Chad in the TriCast.
Listen to this. With 80 professional games and a 65% win rate, his next most played is 55. So plus 25 more games on that champion. You have to imagine it's going to be first pick, arguably banned away, maybe. Let's find out from DRX on the blue side. Lyric, I'm going to come to you first as we do get the first bans coming thing. It's going to be a Fiora straight out the gate.
I think the respect needs to be there. Breathe, really kind of cementing himself in the LPL as the big Fiora player. The thing I'm most curious about Goldberg is the thing we've been seeing all day. You hit on it earlier about the Graves priority. Because RNG and Wei never really been a big team about the Graves. So I'm thinking DRX maybe can just get that one for free.
Yeah, definitely. But I also think it's curious to see that a lot of teams that we did not expect it from in the past has shown it, right? And like, just going off like Asian players when Graves is meta, usually the West is doomed when that happens. So, I mean, if Wei picks it up, that's definitely an extra tool to have in your toolkit. But having DRX on that blue side with the likes of Hecarim also being available, which we have seen so many times already today, that could also be something to look forward to. And crucially, the Kai'Sa have made its way through the first ban phase.
Yeah, I feel like those are the big things, right? For DRX, I'm definitely expecting the Hecarim. That's something that Wei is actually good on. And then seeing where Kai'Sa ends up, because I feel like the AD carry meta is still very unexplored. Like, we've seen the Kai'Sa. We saw Tristana once. I've been hearing in scrims that Tristana actually something that's seen more play. Things like the Ezreal that we haven't seen picked up yet either. So I'm really curious, especially with Deft on the Rift. He plays absolutely everything.
Definitely, and having seen that Fiora be the first ban as well, it makes a lot of sense when you see the Aatrox be the second one to come through as well. Seeing Vi be picked, be very LPL, but it'd be curious to see at this play-ins as well.
Oh my god, this would actually be crazy because RNG were really the first team in LPL that gravitated towards this pick. Really, no one else was picking it up, but Wei loves it.
11 games played, 8 of them victories this summer. First pick, it's followed up with that Jax. 6 games played, 5 of them victories for Breathe.
Yeah, I mean, Breathe, the carry top laner. Heck, we've seen this matchup before, even in the LPL. Kingen used to play on BLG, is more of that weak side top laner, and I know you love this pick.
I love the tree. We haven't really seen it in the jungle yet, but I'm a big fan about what Riot has done to it so far. And Zeka on the Akali, that's not even just a DRX special. That's a special from all the way back when he was actually playing in the LPL. It's curious to see, though, blind pick, it's usually a champion. You want to know what you're playing into. You want to be sure that it's actually fulfilling the right circumstances where he can take charge in lanes. And giving that counter pick over to Xiaohu, he's actually going to be equalizing on it and picking up the Leblanc.
It's actually really surprising to me to see how draft has panned out so far, because I feel like you have a lot of, like, Maokai, Akali, champions that necessarily go pretty hard into their certain niches, right?
Yeah.
Akali gonna be able to play out their sides, look for those flanks of Maokai, wanting those front to backs. And now I think RNG gonna have a lot of ways to pivot around it, especially with their bottom lane picks. I think immobile AD carries, though, gonna feel a little bit rough for both sides when we have assassins on the rim.
Yeah, they're going to be struggling. I think having AD carries that can both self-peel is going to be super crucial, which is why you also see champions banned away like the Sire, but also just champions with the disengage like the Tristana is something I could totally see some of these two AD carries be picking up. Kai'Sa, of course, with that self-peel isn't an option as well, but having Kai'Sa into Maokai with short range playing into a guy that can flash W on you, that could be very crucial to play against, or difficult to play against rather.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised the DRX ban it out, considering that Aatrox, another champion that really likes playing against teams that come in.
Nilah?
Whoa! Nilah for Gala! We always described him as a player who likes to play champions that go in, but this was a pick that was not really brought into the LPL whatsoever.
Super interesting to see. So we've seen some of it in Europe at least. Patrick, one of the few guys that actually put it out and had some decent success with it. Now we have to see Gala finally piloting. It's a short range. It's not like Kai'Sa, but might as well be a little bit. Who knows?
First professional game on Nilah. First Nilah of Worlds. And if you haven't seen her, she's basically just a water Pokemon variant of Samira. The answer is going to be the Tristana from Deft. Not too surprising. And there's one last picture. BeryL currently hovering the Rell. Do you want to see more engaged?
Oh, yeah. I would actually really like to see the Rell here going up against something like a Nilah. Just Rell does so well against short-range champions where you don't need to waste something like a flash to be able to find that engage. You need a lot of value out of your ultimate, just being able to jump in and lock people down. So far I kind of like what DRX have put together to where I feel like RNG it's pretty volatile.
This is going to sound weird, and you do lack some really good engage, but what would really stop at the bot lane coming through from DRX would actually be a thresh from Ming. Now, I don't expect to actually see it, but having that play against both these champions could be crucial. But once again, I think they lack more engage right now, and something that follows up with the Vi. So going for example, the Alistar here, this is really a good pick too.
So Goldborg, zoom out a little bit and tell me about how these two team compositions are going to play out. It's a very different look from what we've seen throughout the course of today, but how do they win?
I definitely think RNG's is way more skirmish heavy than DRX potentially have. In a teamfight scenario, having that Maokai and the follow-up to get with it is going to be super easy to play along with. Jax is probably the only one where I'm looking at, and he's going to be a little more struggling in that scenario, but there's still something to play for with the follow-up you get from a Leblanc and a Vi in the 2v2.
The one thing I'm really afraid of for RNG is like you look at DRX's comp and like they have range DPS that's going to scale throughout the game. You have so many tanky champions where Gala, Xiaohu, they're going to be looking to jump in to find that assassination potential, which I don't know if it's there if they don't find sizable early leads, right? For RNG, it's going to be a lot about picking off individual targets with the Vi Leblanc combo, and I feel like they're going to have to put a lot of attention down towards their side lane.
And eyes on Deft here, because like you got the buffer on the Tristana W into the Alistar. Like it's quite easy to play into it and keep yourself disengaged and self-peeled, as we also talked about. So I think for Deft, he's got all the tools that he kind of needs playing into the composition of RNG.
I mean, eyes on Deft. There's a sentence I wasn't expecting to say today.
You're welcome, I said it.
And I'm very intrigued to see how well DRX will perform. There's a lot of, let's say, questions, maybe criticisms around their performance coming into it. Goldborg, that line was fantastic. The only team at Worlds with a negative win ratio at 49%. RNG, of course, the MSI champions, had a also challenging end to their summer season. What can they make? What statement will they make, especially with this Nilah in the bottom lane?
Yeah, and I'm excited to see because we had Nilah once in the LPL, brought out by LGD.
How'd it go?
Was able to find a win, not necessarily because of the Nilah, but the overwhelming sentiment by LPL players about Nilah was like, hey, this champion in lane, way too weak. Any of us could stomp this in a 2v2. And I mean, going up against Deft, right, highlighting DRX, Deft was that standout player for their side. He was the one with the ability to carry, and we know he can come out with strong 2v2s, but we got a level 1.
Oh, BeryL's going to be forced to crash down with that Ferromancy and get out to safety.
Yeah, I really think that's a big one as well. Being the bot lane when you're playing into a Nilah, it feels so good if you don't have to leash. Like, if you get to either just make them slow push into you, if you drag the minion wave when it spawns, or you just get to take charge with it and really punish the fact that she does not have a good level 1, and you have paired her with the worst support level 1 we also have in the game in the Alistar. Like, if you can deny as many resources on the first few waves as possible, that set Deft up very well, at least for the first 3 waves.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like a lot of this is actually going to come down to mid-jungle, because it's like, okay, DRX having that prio in the bot, they have a solid matchup, but for RNG, they have the winning mid-jungle. Xiaohu having that electrocute should be able to do pretty well into these trades, and then Wei going to be able to do a lot more early on than Pyosik on the Maokai.
I'll just give a quick shout out to the fans in Mexico. We've been cheering all day long, but I think in particular, I was quite surprised by how loud that RNG cheer was. Great interrupt there from Ming, preventing BeryL to get that crash down, and Gala is using that water whip to slap away, but explosive charge bullies him already, and I want to see whether or not Gala can actually, you know, step up to this Rell Tristana bottom.
Now, when Rell finally started getting the few buffs she needed to be played in competitive, it was quite often Alistar into Rell we did see play against each other. Now, Rell actually has an interesting interaction with her E where she can actually stun Alistar mid-W, so he can't get the Q off to cancel that. But in return, of course, Alistar as well will often just pulverize whenever the Rell is going to be jumping in. So it's a very neutralizing matchup between the two supports, which can make aggression a little hard to pull off.
Ooh, Zeka's dropped low, 110 HP. Now playing the bait game. Pyosik making a step forward inside the Shroud. The 5-point Shuriken comes in. The Bramble Smash pops out. That's the clone killed, and Xiaohu escaped to his life.
Really nice by Xiaohu to get away from that. I thought he was being a little bit greedy. Nice setup from DRX, but aren't able to manage to find it in the end. Leblanc, at least one of those champions, even when you don't have Flash, you're not really too vulnerable in the laning phase, but still is going to have to be extra careful now, especially with Pyosik. Always going to have that opportunity to just look for a Flash W. Of
course, Xiaohu has played against Zeka multiple times as well beforehand as well when he was playing in the LPL, so this is not a matchup he's unfamiliar with. So I'm sure there's some extra payback in that regard, that he just wants to send him his last farewell in this single round robin at least to really take charge in the mid lane.
You know, I'm sad Chronicler's in here because I've been ribbing him all day about DRX being our 5th seed. Zeka, LPL 2 years. Kingen, LPL for a year. Deft, everyone remembers EDG.
All right, I'll take the Chronicler stance here instead and then say, well, EDG, what about the Koreans you have on that roster? What about some of the Koreans you have imported in the other roles?
Oh, I like that. Chronicler's made both of those statements. This is fact, by the way. Quote me on that. As Kingen is now being jumped on. Flash trade very nicely done on that dash away to safety. Numble Chains catching Breathe, but very good escape from Kingen.
Just great move overall, and Kingen has been one of the players on DRX that has been questionable, that hasn't had the best time over in the LCK, but expecting this pressure to come out, Breathe being on the Jax matchup, you know you could set up for these easy ganks, and then RNG was playing a lot towards topside once we were in playoffs and in regionals in the LPL, so just really nice diligence coming out for Kingen.
Hold up here, okay, they did fake that back from the side of DRX bot lane here, could have gone for a Cheetah with a slow push wave coming in, but they wanted to see if they could threaten the needle, see if anyone was going to overextend between Ming and Gala. On the top side here, Pyosik actually getting a bit creative, just straight off the reset, looking for a lane gang. No flash on Breathe, remember?
Yeah, I think this play is really interesting. I mean, the wave is coming in, and we see where Wei is pathing down towards that bot side. And knowing Breathe, he's going to go for it, boys. He's going to all in. They're going to find it.
There's no Counter-Strike available. It's going to be up just in a moment or two for Breathe. You know, Pyosik is still just chilling, floating. Gets a knockup, Darkin Blade, the leap comes out, Rumble Smash forward, knocks him sideways, and Breeze's able to escape. They completely messed that up.
Oh, that's a shame, that's a real shame.
I'm honestly mind blown. You knew that Breathe was going to go for it, looking for that angle. Kingen was baiting it perfectly, but Breathe able to leap strike away, and now RNG going to be set up with a very early first dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Mid lane pushed in. Xiaohu does have that teleport if he wants to join the fray. Bot lane with Ming and Gala has also just been shoved, and with that, they're able to secure some pressure on the Drake. Now, Drake's at this point in the game still decently tanky, but once again, with Pyosik showing on that top side, there's none of DRX who's actually going to win it, walk in to try and contest it. And this will be the earliest Drake we've had at Worlds.
Sending a message to Loud, who conceded and secured 6-minute 35's RNG early out the gate. Now, in comparison to First Dragons, they're only ranked 10th in the LPL. 50% of the games do they secure it. But I think what's interesting about both of these teams as 4th seeds, it is very important to remember that statistically, throughout the course of their respective seasons to qualify for Worlds, neither team has really been particularly impressive, right? And the expectations are low from regional fans for both of these teams.
Yeah, I mean, for DRX, right, there's been a lot of struggles with their jungle position. I mean, actually, a lot of people are surprised that Juhan isn't playing this game. He was so critical in their regional series to be able to get here, pulling out the wins in all 5 games. But Pyosik coming back in has actually been looking at a lot of aggression. We can see him constantly hovering towards these sides, has already been around mid, has already ganked top, and it's only a matter of time for the bot lane player.
Yeah, before RNG, it also just felt like a patching as well. Like, in the beginning, it looked good for them with the kind of like, okay, Xiaohu and a facilitation, you just look to play around the rest of the map. But then when it became Enchanter and a Seer mid, they're really struggling, especially against the likes of EDG, for example, which all of a sudden the meta just suited them perfectly. So RNG also almost getting reverse swept against LNG in their last series before finally making it to Worlds. So it's been a bumpy ride for both of them to get here.
Now we need to see whether or not RNG will be able to adapt to the Worlds patch and meta. Already throwing out a very different look, that Vi, Nilah for the first times today. Observers did a great job of highlighting just a moment ago the wards that RNG had placed deep in DRX's jungle. Pyosik clearly spotted out on the Krugs, and now Wei stepping forward. Assault and Battery is available to him. Whether he decides to use it, cease and desist rather. Holds on to the trigger. Eyeball chains come out. Ball breaker, slam down, cease, desist. RNG first play.
Flashes to guarantee that it goes through. Gonna now cement an advantage for Breathe. They're gonna get this wave in. Kingen does have TP, so shouldn't lose out on too much. But with Herald coming up in 20 seconds, getting some pressure up towards the top side is pretty nice.
Yeah, most definitely. And even though the bot lane is also stabilizing now, as you can see, actually, Ming is going to be the one with the first reset as well. So with resets coming through from the top lane, with TPs just being burned, with item advantages start being built up from RNG, they can look to try and move their rotation off towards that Herald to continue to elevate their gold lead.
I do want to say, though, right, we're building up RNG now, starting to find a bit of a lead. But coming out of draft, DRX's comp to me does strike more of needing time, right? They are the one with more of a traditional ranged marksman. Akali will be able to do better against the Leblanc later in the game, and even having, I think, a bit of a beefier front line with the Maokai on top of the Rell. So I think for DRX, not too bad if they start to fall in a bit of a hole.
I mean, for Deft, that draw to be passive, going to be so crucial. He's currently 10 CS down versus Gala and Ming in that bottom lane. And we were anticipating a slightly more strategic, slower game than what we have seen throughout the course of the day. I mean, Lyric, as soon as you stepped up, you said, this could be a slow burn, boys. And we're so far building up towards that. But I am very happy to see RNG striking first. They got the first dragon 2 minutes away from the next dragon. I don't think a lot of people would have favored RNG in this matchup, and they got the comp to pull up the early advantages.
Yeah, and I think especially with that slow burn, right? RNG were never one of the teams who were more towards that stereotypical LPL playstyle of, okay, it's all about blood all the time. No, RNG have always been about their mid game, being able to play the map, play around side lanes, just strategically outplay teams by trading up in sides. DRX on the opposite end, I feel like it's very hard to put DRX in a box, which is pretty nice because like Jat was saying on the desk, right? We don't like to put teams in boxes. DRX, we've seen people like Zeka carry, Deft can step up, they've played towards sides, they've played team fight. It's kind of been a team that's been able to do a bit of it all.
Now, I feel like from the side of RNG, you can clearly tell where they had most of that priority, right? Riftel had gone over to the favor of DRX, but just going from the vision, you can clearly see it here. They get so much intel. Crocs warded up, push straight out of red buff, also coming through in the board, just outside of Tribush. It's really setting up a nice Drake for them, and with Wei just finally hitting his back, he picks up the Kimpong Chainsword, and that's just going to be great, at least from having that extra item advantage when you're gearing up for a Drake that's spawning in 40 seconds.
I mean, again, the observers highlighting all of that deep vision from RNG. It's allowing Gala and Ming to maybe survive the early games a little bit too strong of a phrasing. They're currently on marginally ahead. It picked up an early Drake, setting themselves up for a second one. They got the earliest Drake of the day thus far. But I do want to know how this Nilah is going to play out throughout the course of these team fights. It's not a champion we've seen a significant amount of. So, how do you want to see Gala pilot?
2 to 3 items in the mid game. That's usually where we see these Nilah really go online. It's when you get all the life seed that you need. And I'm going to hold it just for a second because somebody's definitely threatening a play right now.
And assist, as well as Maokai. Pyosik in range. Zeka's going to be able to escape with his life for now. Still got the ultimate to chase forward. Sapling, suicide! Not going to find the damage. And no further burst. Xiaohu dashes forward once more as Zeka committed the ultimate. Now the Cloud Drake is up, and neither jungler has their ultimate.
Yeah, I feel like both these players, though, playing on a nice edge. in the mid lane. DRX have to be a bit careful because we've seen Ming has that prio in that bot side, so was leaning up towards the river. With the trades that we've seen coming out heavily, you know, both mid laners losing a lot of HP, doesn't feel like it's safe for either team to look for a Drake, but DRX still kind of angling for wanting to try and retake some bot side control.
Yeah, but it's just a little like war of attrition between the two teams here. You can see they take tit for tit, tat for tat, and now finally having that bot lane priority, they can move themselves up, but it's still being done in vision, and it's just trying to take away as much information from the enemy team. Deft is not really endangered as he does have the buffer on the jump, even if Ming does go for that engage. But it's really just about finding a pickup that can lead to this Drake, and so far, nothing's really biting on any bait.
Yeah, I feel like for RNG, you now need Xiaohu to look for a back, right? Zeka just coming off his back, gonna drop the Herald now, so having some pretty good prio in mid.
Now, Lyric, you mentioned that the DRX comp was looking for some time. 12 minutes in, they get the Rift Herald, they get some plates onto Zeka's Akali. Are you starting to feel comfortable, nervous in terms of when you look at these compositions and how they play out?
I feel like RNG at least have the buffer of having the Jax, so they should always have an option of like being able to play out and win through sides and get pressure through that. And for RNG, something like that has always been enough to at least have some level of faith in their play. I feel like the scary thing later on will just be 5v5s, right? Zeka going into Shroud, he creates so much space, and then Deft free hitting on the back.
I think this is just where you start up the Drake. As you just mentioned before, Xiaohu had just been back. He finished up that Luden's Echo mythic item compared to Zeka, who's still sitting on component. So this should just be the Cloud Drake going over to the side of RNG with resets and bot lane being pushed in by Deft at the moment.
And when we're saying for RNG, right, it's scrappier, it's skirmishier, you typically want to get those done in the mid game. If they can push themselves onto Soul Point early on and force DRX to fight them before they're really stronger,
No way.
could be the play for
No
them.
way! No way! That was so cool. It didn't ultimately like end in anything, but the third strike Dark and Blade into the Umbral Change was so good.
I feel like
so cool.
especially just coming in with the expectations of Kingen. Like even people from the LCK are like, you know,
Yeah, that's the
he
thing.
plays weak side, he's all right, and he's been faring well for himself, mechanically outplaying Breathe on a few occasions.
Oh man, the Empowered Strike. Counter-Strike's gonna come out. Can't find the stun. Gets away at least from some of those autos.
Yep.
Finds the stun,
That's
and it's 50%.
That's on you guys. I'm just saying you set it up there and it looked cold for a second, but Breathe
Cast
takes
a
it
curse
right
of
back.
I want to take credit for that one. You know what? If RNG win, let's give it to us.
You are using your power for bias, my friend, but it was beautiful to watch, Lyric.
You know, that's what I'm here to do. That's why we had to make it seem like Jat is the LPL bias one on the desk.
I
so I
see
can
it
comp
now.
and influence the matchup. But
Man, truly, LPL analyst, just 200 IQ. Not just about the game, but about
weren't you one of us?
Yeah, I lost some IQ and was kicked, yeah. So I went to LEC.
Oh, that was well played, Goldborg. RNG are up 1,000 gold. 2 kills to 0. And it's felt like the impact of when moving around the map, just marginally more successful. Pyosik, level 9 on this jungle Maokai. First time we've seen it today. Goldborg going to look for potential engage. Distortion is available. That's one of the escape tools. Just been used. Flashes up too. I am going to say now, jungle Maokai, this stage of the game, early game, to be expected. Did you want to see more? Are you happy
I feel
with
like
this?
it's definitely one of the things where you could have taken a bit more charge. The one that just did go wrong was the top side play they had. That should have probably resulted in a kill, and when that didn't happen, well, Breathe got to stabilize again, and it's going to put Kingen in this position where, well, we just saw it before, right?
And we've seen, right? I feel like the most surprising thing to me is the fact that both teams have been fighting so heavily over control of mid, right? We've seen both Pyosik and Wei in the mid lane numerous times when both of these mid lane champions are incredibly hard to gank. I feel like Pyosik has tried to be active, like he's literally been around all 3 lanes pretty much constantly, but there just isn't a whole lot of opportunity there with what RNG's picked up.
But it's not only just that, it's also just a pathway to the mid lane. Like River is just being walked back and forth between every lane every single time. Drop in a pink ward, take away the pink ward, get whatever control you have. Now Wei, back on the top side, Kingen does have that flash, and he does have the intel that Wei's around now. Pyosik, what do you do with this? Still looking at Rift Herald actually, just outside of vision, but Wei will be spotting this now. Xiaohu's on a reset, and even Ming is going back to base, so this could just be DRX picking up the Rift Herald.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that Xiaohu's even considering pathing towards there, because BeryL's showing in mid right now, so there really shouldn't be any opportunity for RNG to look for the contest. Looks like they were hoping maybe if DRX made a misstep and started to send members back to lanes early on, they could go for a bit of a Houdini and just swipe it from under them, but DRX aren't going to give them the chance.
Yeah, but good presence of mind as well from DRX. Finally, they have the first move from the bot line, and they utilize that to the full is now with Rift Held and a very low mid lane turret, you could look for this, but you could also just look to leverage the manpower and try and take it down, but they're going to pop Rift Held immediately.
I really like from DRX the investment in vision and set up the play that was ultimately really safely secured. Tower First Blood now picked up. Kingen gets caught up by that cease and desist. Infernal Chains buys some time. Wave's taking a lot of damage, but Breathe closes it out. 2-0-1 on a Jax versus first tower and an instant tower apply. This is where you start to get nervous for DRX.
Yeah, I feel like both teams kind of got something that really heavily benefits them, because for RNG now, you have the extended side lane, which you know that Jax is going to do well into, and for DRX, breaking open mid, I mean, you don't have a ton of wave clear. Actually, you have no wave clear on the side of RNG, so where DRX have this Tristana, which can really just be an annoyance with that passive, continuously pushing them in.
I mean, such a scary thing. The thing for me is, despite the fact both teams getting an advantage, a 2-0-1 Divine Sundra Jax at 16 minutes already, will start it back away and spend, is terrifying. As an aside as well, Lyric, as you know, I love meaningful, important stats, right? Quick stats, they are my passion. I want to let you know that at 15 minutes, RNG had the highest amount of CSD at 558 creep score. It's important, isn't it?
I gotta say, I am so happy I have finally gotten to experience a quick stat.
Yes!
Oh, my word.
Yes! You are welcome to cost me anytime. Gulborg is giving me no love at all on my quick.
See you later, buddy.
It's okay. It's not going to be the first time. Now, Drake will be spawning in 15 seconds. Jet lag in 11 hours is killing me. Either way, mid lane will be pushed in and RNG securing control for themselves. What would be the third Drake of the game?
How does DRX start this fight, Gulborg? When I look at the vision...
Oh, you could have asked Lyric.
I know, but I want you to tell me. Take a look at this as RNG have started it, and DRX, do they consider the fight? There's no World Ender available for Aatrox, but they do have the Nature's Grasp available to them.
Yeah, and that's the big one as well. This long-range Maokai ultimate that has been upped in the missile speed as well when it's finally going forward can be really crucial in terms of splitting members apart. I think the big one for RNG, though, is the fact you have a reliable cow to stand behind. So if he's tanked us up, that's going to be great. Zeka.
Oh, Chains caught inside the Twilight Shroud, and now all of a sudden RNG starting to back away. Breathe has found a flank opportunity onto Deft. Gets the leap in power, did not use the counter-strike, holding on to it. Infernal Chains pulls backwards, and that's Breathe down. Deft picks up the first of the fight. He continues to fire away, uncontested, unchallenged. Rocket jumps forward, gets the reset, waits for the jump, the boop, the bop. Xiaohu's going to be able to get away to safety, and Pyosik, the Bramble Smash was beautiful. The tree does it, and RNG are getting dunked. 4 members down, 1 remaining, and Xiaohu's running for his life, limping. No flash available. Gets at least 1 back for the Bud Light Ace.
And Deft is showing us why he makes an appearance on the international stage so often. 3-0-2 on the Tristana already. He's massive.
And it's such a pivotal way to do it as well. It's the third Drake that you fight RNG on. If they get that under fight, that's pretty much the game over. Because you manage to stabilize, you find a team fight, and you get Deft ahead of the curve. You fight your way back into the game.
I'm going to bring it back to that joke I made earlier, but that slow, steady, stable farming early game gave enough time for DRX to pick up this fight.
It's one of those things where RNG thought they'd found the Akali, but they kind of opened themselves up to this numbers disadvantage fight on the top side. I get what Breathe thinks he's finding, jump on a Deft, but the other members of RNG aren't close enough to really capitalize.
It's also just the ultimate deficit that they currently find themselves in. Because they utilize so much in the Akali, they don't have the proper tools to start a team fight. Gala wants to jump in there when they buy ults, and they just pile on 1 member and blow them up. But because you're so isolated and you find the fight at different times, it just doesn't work out for RNG.
And it's funny because despite, again, getting wiped in this fight, we can see on the bottom right-hand corner of our screen, it's not dissuading the aggression coming out from RNG is DRX coaching staff. Ecstatic, and hey, again, when I do feel like RNG were slight favorites over them coming into this group, they have reason to be excited.
I mean, really good start here. Deft 3-0-2 after that fight. We did talk about the fact all eyes on Deft, the Tristana as an option. Currently at level 12, continuing to increase that range. Gala on the Nilah, 0-1-1. I'm waiting for 2 and 3 items. That is obviously where she's really going to come online. And if DRX group up, that apotheosis is going to be gigantic.
Yeah, the big thing with Nilah is the fact that so much of her kit scales with critical chance, and when you finally pick up that Rift Herald, you will get way more value in your kit in terms of the extra armor penetration you get out of it, the range from EQ, of course, and of course just the lifesteal that builds into it. Like, we've seen so many times as well, Nilah just forfeits him up into that Deft stance. That's going to do great wonders when you see Deft as one of the main carries from DRX too.
I do feel like for RNG, though, we might have to start looking at other members, right? Because, again, even when Gala gets on those item power spikes, you're going to be jumping into a Rell, into a Maokai, into an Aatrox. I feel like Xiaohu and BeryL, they're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting.
And can I tell you, the fact that we're playing for a Hextech Soul actually terrifies me, because Jax, Vi, Nilah, all going to be really happy with that. Akali, Aatrox, Tristana, all going to be really happy for that. So this is a very impactful Soul.
It's almost
for
like it's
both
the best in the
compositions.
game.
But I think more so the point to get at there is just the fact that, like, literally, like, all the damage dealers and carries will benefit from the stats that it's going to give you. And RNG, it's 2 dragons to 1, but now they are behind in kills, they are behind in gold, and this kind of slow burn of a game could become extremely explosive in team fights, or if BeryL is able to control the side.
I mean, this might go like a long time. Just taking a look at how slow they deal with the outer turrets, both teams are not really making any progress. They've both taken care of once, but we're at 22 minutes into the game in just a bit, and they've only removed 1 of each side of it. This is really the definition of a slow burner, which we have said quite a lot so far, and it's just because there's not too many tools to just take agency in lane and start pushing it in.
I feel like when I'm looking at like the map state right now, though, for RNG, you have to start looking at opportunities to like overcommit to a side, right? Kind of accept Gala's gonna get pushed in mid, send Ming and way up towards top, get the push, and then maybe make a play where Xiaohu is TP, make a double soul lane play on sides, because I feel like anywhere DRX group up right now, they should just be favored. So RNG have to look for creative ways to burn these TPs and to force picks.
It's just that. You can also just go for resets at the same time, look for 2 solo laners just shadowing in a bush, because quite often you don't expect 2 solo laners standing on the same planes. We've seen quite a few teams started doing it in newer times as well to just find people off guard, but so far they're both answering to the same strategy. They're just waiting around, and I just feel like we're not going to get too much action unless they find Zeka again, which we've already seen them be unsuccessful, until we finally see that in next trade come through.
I mean, I think every time I look at the minimap, in the early game, I had to respect RNG's warding on the bottom quadrant to allow the dragons and give Gala the safety in lane. But I think as we've moved now 10, 12 minutes plus, both the defensive and the proactive warding from DRX has really allowed them to not be flanked. And when you think of Jax, Vi, Leblanc, Alistar, any one of those champions is very happy coming from out of vision, coming from behind, from a strange angle. There's a lot of mobility on the comp, but RNG haven't been allowed to do that because DRX have got great vision thus far.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a way to sum up how the vision's played out, right? For RNG, they've kind of had like very controlled in one place vision, like bot side or top side, to where DRX, look at it, this whole game, it's typically been like a neutral line across the whole map to see where everyone is, because they feel comfortable, hey, as long as like action doesn't come out against us, we're fine.
And those saplings are definitely doing work. I think every time we catch Pyosik running past and whatnot, just chucking out one of those little space boys, and we've seen it playing a little bit. A great highlight again. You cannot underestimate, really quantify just how valuable that amount of information is in a game like that.
I mean, it's so annoying too, right? Especially when you're playing LeBlanc, Vi, Jax, like all these champions
Yes.
that want to go into brushes, come off weird angles. Pyosik just says no.
Oh no, this could be scary. This could be scary. 1, 2, 3 versus 4. 3 versus 4. Crashdown comes out. Magnet as well. DRX is on a rampage, looking for the 5th, and he finds it. The dragon's available. RNG thought they were hunting, but they got hunted.
It starts with the tree, and they pick up 2 kills for free. Deft, yet another time, securing it. 5-0 under Tristana, and picking up 2 Hextech Drakes for themselves now.
It starts with the tree, and they get 2 for free, and that makes Lyric happy!
You know what? I gotta apologize to people like Atlas out there. Chronicler, I've been ribbing them quite a bit, but for DRX, I mean, when we've been talking about RNG wanting to make these plays towards sides, wanting to look for these picks, like, if we know that, you know who else knows that?
Yeah.
DRX know exactly what RNG needs to do to find advantage in this game. Really nice play overall. BeryL getting a nice stun, and once the roots come down, there's really just nowhere to go.
But there's also just a big difference in terms of team setup there. There's 3 members of RNG going in towards that bush, where it's 5 members of DRX being ready for it. In terms of planning and setup, DRX is just the one that's ahead of it right now.
And honestly, kind of looking back at earlier, something that Dash was hitting on in chat, just when it comes to Worlds and Best of Ones, that's never really been the LPL strong suit, right? I mean, it's been where they've been able to lose. Heck, even thinking about last year, RNG, they were in that group with Fnatic who didn't have their full roster, dropped the only game to them, just DRX now getting the best of them so far.
I get nostalgic looking at that goal graph. That reminds me of LPL lyric. You know, this start with a goal lead into opposite mountain for the opponent's team.
And you know what?
Yeah.
You know what? It doesn't end yet.
No.
It starts a mountain and it becomes a roller coaster.
Now the question is, do RNG have the tools to really bounce back from this? We've seen in the set pieces, in the fights around neutral objectives, you have to feel that DRX have an advantage, at least with how they're playing the vision game as well. There's just been no opportunities for RNG to find those flanks, to find those picks.
Yeah, I feel like it might require a mistake coming out from the member who won't make a mistake, which is Deft. Because if, I mean, they have burst, right? If Deft is ever a little bit too far forward, if Wei, Xiaohu, and then either Gala or breathing on top of him, he's just dead, he's their consistent DPS. Sure, they have other damage, and maybe can still play a fight, but still, it would be heavily in RNG's favor. So, eyes are on Deft to see if someone who never makes mistakes makes a mistake.
Yeah, and I think in terms of pressure that RNG can gain on the map, there's really only one member who's going to be able to get that for you, and it will be Breathe in the side lane. The problem is he's just not in a position where he's going to straight up dive the Aatrox on the tower, and because of that, DRX gets so much mobility to move around as a 4-man unit, because even if in the 4 versus 4, it's still DRX that's going to be winning out on this.
5 to 10 minutes ago, Breathe was 2-0-1, just taken towers, was in a position to kind of overtake the game. DRX managed to slow things down, Common pick up 2 Hextech Drakes back-to-back, and I have to ask, is the next tower's about to fall. I mean, Lyric, expectations from regional play versus what we're seeing now, can we draw some inferences now we're 30 minutes in? Or do you think it's just the compositions are kind of influencing what we're seeing?
I definitely think compositions are influencing. Again, I feel like RNG's kind of weird. Like, they're holding on to something from the past that worked, like the Vi, right? Coming in, we haven't really seen much Vi here at Worlds. To our way, bringing it in, something he was very comfortable on. Gala, though, going the complete opposite direction. Nilah, not something I've really heard of in scrims being too popular with teams, but RNG didn't really play it during the split, but kind of experimenting. So I definitely think DRX have been playing good. Like, they've been reading RNG like a book in this mid-game, but RNG definitely bring out a few different picks and different style than I'd expect.
But I also think they allowed it a little bit because they slowed down the pace of the game, and like leading into the first early game, it looked good. They tried to find the skirmishes, but I think they just got too overconfident in what they could accomplish with said skirmishes. And you know, you have to think back when they tried to look for Zeka rather, at that third Drake. But now, moving forward, 1 minute and 30 seconds on the next Drake. Baron is also up and available now. The problem is that RNG is that sometimes when the third Drake is prioritized by, for example, DRX, at least you'd be able to threaten the Baron. But you don't really have the biggest Baron take team unless Breathe is up with you on that top side instead.
Black Cleaver was just picked up by him. What was that Frozen Heart? Infinity Edge secured for Gala on that Nilah. Is this going to be enough to turn around a 3,500 gold deficit? I mean, the Tifa has to be perfect with that ult, and it may not even get a chance. I mean, right now, DRX, they've started up the Baron. They are trying to hammer this one away. 7,000 hit points secured.
Oh, Zeka.
Zeka is on the back line, can hop over the wall. Flash available to him. Baron has been stopped, Lyric.
Yeah, we see they are able to force out the
That's
TP,
big.
so it's at least going to relieve pressure on sides that Breathe has been able to put up. And I mean, heck, even if any kind of skirmish breaks are here, like we've been saying, DRX feel kind of comfortable in these 5v5s. It would take a misstep for RNG to come through. So DRX getting exactly what they wanted.
Completely, and now Zeka still pushing on the top side as well, so there's a minion wave to commit a play on. You don't have the best vision control in terms of backing it up, but he can crash the wave, move down with his team, continue with the pressure, and remember, no TP from Breathe now. Xiaohu's the only one that's going to be responding to it, and as soon as he sees movement on the map, he's just backing off. And with so many members now from RNG on the top side, that's allowing DRX to get mid control once again. You can move that down towards the bottom side, and then Drake is spawning in 10 seconds.
The good thing for RNG, right, is that they never overcommitted towards making that move towards top. They're like, okay, fine, if we lose a wave, it's whatever. Dragon's coming up. We need this. We'll be on Soul Point. They still have some control wards on the map, like we can see even in bot control brush.
Oh, there was zero hesitation on that one, but Wei may not have liked it. That's a route secured, at least onto Ming. Now the turnaround. Breathe is looking for a target. He gets Bramble smashed to the face, leaps over to a ward, and RNG escape with their lives. They started the fight, and they had to run for the hill.
That's the thing, that should just be the fight disengaged. They can try and hop up towards the top side of the map to threaten the Baron if they want, but what our DRX is going to do is just they're going to leave 2 members there, and the rest of the members of their team could just try to threaten them away from the Baron.
Lyric said it just a few moments ago, this is not the fastest Baron taking team. You need Breathe there. There is no threat for Baron because of this composition they put together. DRX get the Dragon, they're on Soul Point, they're significantly further ahead, and it's just a great position to be in.
You know, I agree. When I said that thing about the Baron go
It's okay. It's late for all of us.
Teamwork. I should have said, we said.
Yeah, that's usually the best default
Goldborg,
go-to.
my apologies. That was well played, friend.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Now, still, Baron has been started up, so let's get serious again. Way no flash. He does have that Q, of course, on the Vine. Let's see what they actually look to achieve with this play.
Starting to charge up that Vault Breaker, holding on to it. 3,000 hit points on Baron, and Fatal Chains come back. 2,500, 2,000. Vault's push inside. Smite! Stolen it! Xiaohu! How?
This guy has always been the heart and soul of RNG, and somehow, first game at Worlds, he shows why. And Ming is the only casualty of that play as well. We need a slow-mo replay of that to see how that actually went down, because Wei is denied entrance to it, and it's Xiaohu who picks it up. Lost points.
Honestly, it looked like DRX recovering their base as well. We saw members trying to zone on the opposite side of the pit right. Zeka was making his way
right
around.
now. Is there smite coming through early? There's a smite. That's just a pixel perfect together with the smite. It has to be like, you don't even see what it goes down to.
Yeah.
Don't think Wei Smite is on cooldown. I'm not sure if that's a spectator.
There's not
thing
Wei
or
in
not
there.
first. Didn't get in the pit, so couldn't get it.
Yeah.
Oh my word.
That's so sad for DRX.
Okay. Is this enough to bring RNG back into this game? We know Breathe can split push. With the Baron buff, it's going to be made even easier. That was one of the ways, maybe one of the only believable ways in how they could win the game from the current state.
Yeah, I definitely think it's enough to bring them back into a position where it's like, okay, now they're contending, right? Because they were kind of out in our minds. It would have required mistakes from DRX. Now for RNG, you're able to get push in mid. You can maybe try and find a pick if you start rotating the LeBlanc over the Jax and get back into the game that way. They are still at a deficit though, and DRX are still on soul points, so it's not completely on even footing just yet.
Yeah, but you can see at least they're in a position where they're contesting push on towers now. They're so forced back before earlier. Now with Baron buff, at least they can move the pressure a bit around. Breathe push in bot side, he get the first move. They get a bit of damage on the mid turret. You can continue this trend again, move Breathe down to the bot side, see who responds, and just continue with the rotations to puppeteer DRX around.
I really need to see Gala doing something in this game. That Nilah was first pick on phase 2. It was answered with the Tristana. 0-1-1, 3.5 items completed, but Deft back on the world stage. 5-0-3, 4 items completed. Stopwatch in hand. And look, I mean, 105, 105, 503, 006. BeryL is 1 assist away from James bonding it up. And for the time being, DRX have got the team fights. If they can control the split push, which they have, 40 seconds left on Baron, you have to feel this next dragon could determine the game.
I was going to say ice on Xiaohu, but he actually still haven't finished up the Rabadon's death cap. He's still sitting at components. I thought he was almost
behind.
there.
Yes, he's an entire hourglass behind.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and for Zeka, right, we've been talking a lot about Deft. First time on the international stage coming up, had 2 unsuccessful years in the LPL, makes his way over to the LCK, where it was a little bit hot and cold, right? Had moments where he looked like the second best mid laner in the league after Chovy, but also at times where he wasn't so hot at all. So nice to see him come in, deal with the aggression coming from Xiaohu, and honestly get the best of him so far.
Yeah, now up to Brave to see what he can get done with the pressure. Kingen does not have that teleport yet, so they send SEMIFINALS up towards him. 1 minute and 20 seconds under Drake, so there's still plenty of time for Breathe to continue on the top side. The problem he's running into right now is that no one's in a position to actually facilitate him with vision, and because of that, he's so scared to walk out, because if he gets picked up before Drake, that is just a soul going over to DRX.
Okay, Lyric set up this Drake that Goldborg just set the stakes for. If we look at vision, if we look at positioning, RNG currently pushing, they want to contest this.
I feel like RNG are going to need to look for a moment to force, like honestly would have been now when you see 2 members on sides, because if you give DRX time to group up in mid, it just feels so hard, because DRX honestly doesn't really even matter if you just let Jax push into turret. It doesn't really change the state of the game. As long as they can guarantee this next Drake, they're doing fine. So we're going to need to see some control wards come out. I feel like they need to control both entry points into River and to find that angle onto Deft. Xiaohu Wei, and then either one of Breathe or Gala.
And this is also one of the better times, because at least you have vision pockets now. You have uncertainty, so it's so important that they stay around Deft here, because if he gets picked up, other members are scourging for vision, it can just be a way for RNG back into it.
Nature's Grasp is available 2 seconds before the dragon spawns. Death caps secured for both mid laners. The Drake is inside the pit, and so is Wei. DRX grouped up. Zeka looking for the flank opportunity, but so is Ming, Lyric.
Yeah, RNG trying to find that way around. They know they need to, right? They need to find a way onto Deft, but DRX making the right call, going to mid, pushing the wave.
Exactly, now you just get the priority, and there's going to be pressure that RNG will need to respond to. They'll feel the pressure and will have to burst the Drake soon to force one fight, because the minion wave is something that you're going to be have to paying attention to. Now Drake down to half HP.
Gala's got himself that GA available. Slap, 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 whip, whip, whip. Nature's Wrath comes out. Wei stepping onto the dragon, picks it up. 3 dragons a piece, but at what cost? Gala's going low. The apotheosis has already been used. The knockback is gigantic. It's Pyosik that goes down. Breathe gets one back. Deft has got himself a double already. Now trying to fight out. Breathe, the counter-strike keeps him alive. Infernal Chains don't pull him out. 3 for 3. Deft goes golden with a stopwatch. Breathe looking to stun. He finds it. He gets the shutdown onto Deft. It breathes Jax to the team fight. They're trying to close it out. Landing for another. Zeka's running for his life. 2v1. It was the Jax, but it wasn't in the side lane. It was in the fight.
I honestly cannot believe that RNG were able to bring that back. Wei, you still gotta be careful!
The blast cone! But here comes Breathe. Can he can it? Another one. 4 versus 4 in terms of
Zeka,
death.
don't do
now
it.
Breathe get taken down by Zeka.
Zeka, that's absolutely beautiful on the Akali as well. It looked like a fight that RNG was finally going to take, but in a 1 versus 2, the man from the mid lane steps up and put them back on track, and he is so goddamn fed.
Lyric, will RNG get another fight like that is the question.
I feel like it's looking rough. The fact that Breathe managed to play that so well, found numerous times he stepped away until he was finally able to get the lockdown was huge. The problem is, for RNG, it's looking like Breathe, but for DRX, they have 2 carries now. They have both Zeka and Deft stepping up. I mean, 4-0 and 7, 7-1 and 4. And look, Deft now has the GA, Gala's already popped, and with that, DRX feel very confident to look towards this Baron.
Yeah, and 10 seconds still on Breathe. He does have that teleport. It's the question, can the members of RNG stall it out? As it's looking right now, no, you don't even want to kind of risk that one member is going to be going down, because then that will just be the game. So DRX picking up the Baron once again should be able to take more charge of it, but let's see how it actually pans out. Crucial by Wave by actually securing the Drake.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, this fight was absolutely bananas, fellas. There was stuff going on all over the place. The key thing though, Wei able to get on Deft early. Deft does manage to escape and find a few kills, but then we see Breathe able to get in there, forces him back. Deft actually has to jump over the wall, uses that heal early on, and then him going for the rocket jump in Goldberg was absolutely crazy.
It just felt like that was the moment Breathe waited for as well, because you see Deft had a plan, he had the flash, he had the stopwatch, but Breathe just holding on to the counter-strike, like really waiting it out for the right time. And then of course, Zeka is waiting and picking them apart like a scalpel, slicing through RNG's members here.
Man, I can't believe that. I am also surprised that Wei even chased that down. I mean, Zeka was doing so incredibly well throughout the course of the game. He definitely was not going to be able to win that fight in a 1v1. Maybe hoping Breathe was a bit closer. Didn't work out. The ace ends up landing. And can Lightning strike twice? Can the Baron be fended off by RNG? And can Breathe do that again? Because ultimately he's going to have to claw back the deficit. It is still 2 minutes from the Soul. That could be a game changer.
Yeah, and I feel like it's so hard, right? We hit on earlier that RNG have no wave clear. They have no way of stopping DRX's push. And on top of Baron, just having the Tristana, who's just going to take these turrets so incredibly fast. So DRX is going to increase their gold lead. We're going to see members like King and Pyosik able to pick up more items on their next back. Then we're going to come into the final Dragon fight where DRX should have a sizable item lead.
Yeah, and 2 lanes now being pushed in. Yes, it's nice getting the objective here, but it's even more so just keeping RNG in their own base so they have no vision to play around with when their Drake finally comes up and gets active. It's even just like, you can continue here, get good reset timers. You can even look for a fight if Ming gets pulled in. He doesn't, but he continues with the siege.
3,000 gold advantage thanks to the Red Bull Baron power play. A minute left on the siege. Bottom inhibitor is exposed. Middle is being secured. The little sapling is slowing down Gala, who may as well have played Evelyn. Nearly invisible this game. It has been about the Deft and Pyosik show, really flanked and supported by everyone on DRX. Please don't get me wrong, but the way that those team fights and the vision have been played out, RNG have been unable to really maintain any foothold in this game. 2 waves of supers. Baron's going to time out in 30 seconds. You do not get a better play, and 30 seconds to trade.
Yeah, and honestly, RNG were one of the best teams in the LPL regular season at finding comeback wins, at falling 5, 10K gold behind, but still able. Whoa. Quick shot, I gotta say, when we have LPL versus LPL, I have no favorites. I haven't followed our 5th seed too heavily, but...
Thank you, Chronicler, for that one.
Now, 20 seconds. Both teams is currently on soul point, and even though DRX currently have the lead, it feels like if Wei manages to get it, and there's ways to play it out, RNG may claw their way back into this game, but DRX not looking to lose the grasp of this game.
16-second flash timer for both Wei. Correction for Deft. Wei has his up. This is for the soul. Dragon is being chunked down. Kingen's coming in from behind. The engage is starting.
Oh, no.
BeryL's gone. BeryL's gone. Xiaohu just deleted him. The Infernal Chains comes out, and Zeka's going to run for his life. Death is staying alive at 12 hit points. The Dragon is now resetting inside the pit, and Wei's going to run away. That Salts is not going to be able to use that dash over the wall. Now, all of a sudden, 5 members of RNG turning their focus onto the Dragon. It's stolen. Pyosik gets the soul. Deft gets the kill, followed up by another for Pyosik. Breather still standing with the flash available. He's going to run for his life. Going to run for days. Get back to base, and DRX may want to look for the win.
We see Pyosik come back into the roster. Worlds gets the steal that matters and enables Deft to keep popping off.
You asked why, he answered. I can't believe you actually managed to steal that as a Maokai of all of the things. Now Breathe doing his best to hold it up, but he's still fighting 5 members off the side of DRX.
Nothing that they can do. DRX and Deft dominate RNG.
And how sad are you?
Hey, look at that face. It's never a bad day for anyone in the world.
See the alpaca happy.
Exactly.
True
Everybody,
that.
all of my
True that.
homies love Deft. So, you know what?
I have not met a single person that actually hated him, and just the way he stepped up in this game as well. Zeka as well in the mid lane, like them two was just a wonder duo in this game, and even Pyosik.
Well, I also want to, again, Pyosik and Kingen, because they were the 2 members coming in that no one had any expectation from.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
sure, Kingen wasn't finding advantages, but mechanical outplays in topside, and Pyosik overall doing a great job of reading everywhere Wei wanted to go.
Can I remind you that in Group B, the Saigon Buffaloes, Mad Lions, Istanbul Wildcats, and Isris are watching and waiting. I am very intrigued to see how each of those respective teams will match up, DRX and RNG, because that was a maybe surprisingly... It was an interesting game to start off versus expectations coming in.
It was also just like very different reads on the meta from what we've seen so far. The fact that DRX had this heavy prioritization of the Akali to the point where they wanted to blind pick it. RNG probably came in with what I define as a little worse read on what was actually coming through here. They went for something that was very old school and not so much what we've seen on the newer patches.
And it goes back to something me and you were talking about earlier in the day, where we're like, hey, what do we think's the read on the meta? What's going on? And it's like, I don't think we'll really know until we see teams like DRX, teams like RNG playing. It was really interesting getting to see, again, how they view it. The Akali coming out, things like the Tristana, once again, be more highly prioritized.
I don't know how much time we have before we do head over for the post-show to end up things, but Lyric, any sort of key takeaways, big surprises, things that you wanted to see but didn't, or vice versa, saw today that was surprising?
For the side of RNG, it's still just the picks that are coming through. Like, again, I don't know if Gala was watching LPL, but it seems like the sentiment in LPL was, don't play Nilah. This is not a good champion for DRX side. Honestly, just how well they played holistically. The read from the team playing together as a 5 to cover those side lane plays coming out from RNG.
I think it's so easy to go back and have a look at the draft because there's a lot of different decisions that's actually very impactful by every step. Like, you go back to the fact that this was forfeit. You could have been the one with the Tristana as well, but you left it open for Deft instead. You willingly prioritized this champion. So I generally feel like from the side of RNG, definitely something to look forward to in terms of improvement.
Well, listen, we do need to head off. Just before we do, though, could you give me the little heart from trying to hold your hand nice and tight? Just point at the camera and do that for me. Right? No, just you. And then, Gulborg, can you make love with me here? Come on, there we go. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us on this marathon opening day. But for now, we're cooling down at the State Farm Analyst. That's not fair.
It's been a long day.
That is not fair. That is not fair. That bird deserved it.
It's been a 12-hour day.
I might debate you on that point. Interesting love triangle there in that prison cell, you know?
Moving on, this game, the draft.
Yes, okay, great. Let's talk about it. I mean, what a result. What a result for, I mean, we knew that these were two of the favorites of probably for all of play-ins, but of course in this group. But the expectation still for most people was that RNG should go undefeated. That is the expectation, and DRX, they dashed those plans in an instant.
You know who else I think had that expectation?
Whom?
RNG.
Yeah,
When
I
they're
think
like,
they did.
why don't we just pick Vi when no one else picks it? Yes, Vi Jax right away. Okay. Why don't we pick like all mids? Like I think that'll work.
Yeah, like technically, obviously LeBlanc and Nilah are not always melee champs, but you have to get very close range to make these things work. They're mostly about outplays and assassinations and big moments, and for a while it was looking pretty good. They were dumpstering up in the top side. Kingen was getting abused. Breathe was looking great. Wei was making his life a living hell. And for a while, I was like, wow, yeah, this is the RNG everyone was expecting. And you can see how big of a goal lead they had for that top side of the map.
Yeah, 2-0-1 Jax early on. And a Vi who's off to the races. Granted, I agree with you, it's kind of a weird pick of Vi when you consider the entire team comp that you're playing into, because I think you see the difficulty when we get to the team fight stages of this game, where Vi, as we know, can go in and can't really come out. And when you're playing against something like a Maokai, a Rell, you've all this CC. You go in and instantly you become useless because Tristana will hop away, or the Akali goes into a Shroud, and you don't really have that one-shot capability anymore.
Yeah, and I want to be balanced here. This was a very fun game.
Oh, it was a great game.
And DRX played well. Deft was amazing in this one. I still don't think that changes the fact this was an ego draft by RNG, thinking they could just style on them. And then fights like this where you're noticing, you know, the range of Deft really comes in huge.
Yeah, the fact that Deft had to pilot around all these dangerous threats that we've identified, you know, yes, it is an ego draft, but you're also playing an incredible team. And so the fact that Deft never got popped early in fights was like the most important thing this entire game. I think Pyosik had a great game on the Maokai, providing that peeling for him the entire time, locking down key targets. You also had some great engages by BeryL on that Rell pick, locking down this short-range team. But it was really the Deft show here. I think he ended with 9 kills at the end of it, just resetting through team fights over and over again.
Racking them up on that Tristana. I like the call on Pyosik too, because once it comes down to the final team fight as well around Hextech Drake Soul, right? Gets the smite secure. And sometimes that's what you need, right? Who knows if the smite had gone the other way and the Hextech Soul hops on over to RNG's side, if the fight would have turned out differently. So every member on DRX stepping up in their own way here to make sure that they would get the win.
Yeah, and I mean, steal for steal, right?
I was about to say, yeah.
There was a Baron steal that kept RNG in this game.
From Xiaohu, yeah.
From Xiaohu with stealing it with Leblanc, and then able to come back and secure the Hextech Soul. My crystal ball pick for most taken, Drake. Looked pretty good this game.
There were
like
five of them because RNG had 1, and then DRX got 4. So
I'm like so weirdly invested in having the right pick for the most taken.
I told you it's going to be either Mountain or Hextech because they're the most advantageous Drakes. So anytime they're up, people are actually going to fight for them and go for them.
Also, head tap to Zeka. There are a couple fights where Deft did drop, and he was able to kind of save some of those.
More damage than Deft.
Yeah, I think Deft got a lot of resets and survived a lot of things through the back end of the fight. But whenever the enemy went in, it was also kind of him going for that kind of counter engage, and there not being a ton of tools to deal with this slippery Akali.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, honestly, what an interesting game. I want to echo your sentiment from earlier. It was so exciting to watch. We're just still, I think, a little shell-shocked, some people, at the result, but it's great because we get to update this as well. I'm so glad we checked these stats. Since 2018, heading into the matchup, LCK was 1 game behind in the head-to-head. They now even it up in those more recent years at 24-24. Still having a fair lead in the all-time stats, but obviously with 4 teams for each of these regions alive in the tournament, there's going to be a lot more changes to those numbers.
Yeah, and as Mark said earlier, that's just game score for any time the LPL has played LCK in play-in, in groups, in world
in
finals,
best of fives,
all combined. This result as well, though, kind of makes things a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what I was terrified of as a North American fan watching the other group, in a sense, is any shenanigans. I mean, EG looked terrible today, let's be honest. So who knows even them at 2 seed. But the thought was 2 seed EG having to deal with someone from Group B coming over. If there's any shenanigans, maybe RNG underperforms in groups. We've seen Chinese teams do this before.
Right.
LNG went 1-5, I think it was, or 1-4.
I actually think
LGD, you're right.
I actually think the reality is scary though, because as you're saying, like, if EG gets second, I still think like RNG is not going to go lower than 2, right? So they would stay on opposite sides. My real fear is that RNG is now going to be 2 with DRX winning out all their games. EG rather, with their poor performance. Now I'm worried they get 3rd.
Yeah.
And if they win that best of 5, they have to go play RNG in a best of 5 then. Like, that, I think, is the terrifying prospect, that you're now the 3rd seed out of Group A.
I don't know, RNG didn't look that good. Maybe we're fine.
Yeah, maybe they'll build a 1,200 gold lead in the top lane in 10 minutes, and we'll be able to come back in team fights.
RNG will be fine.
Yeah,
They're absolutely going to be fine. No, this doesn't necessarily worry me. Again, like we talked about, it was definitely a bit of an ego draft. And we even saw with that ego draft how close they were to victory against one of the other best teams out of the 12 that we have playing in play-ins. And so, again, that to me kind of speaks to the fact that we shouldn't be too concerned, and I'm sure that they'll workshop their draft coming into tomorrow.
I think also people were probably sleeping on DRX a little bit. They had some struggles in playoffs. LCK is tough, and I think that might have led to some underrating of them. But when Zeka's playing well, he was actually one of the better players for them. Pyosik was struggling in playoffs. He looked much better. You know, like, this is a team that I think has that potential with BeryL as well.
Definitely. So this time around, it's LCK that gets the better of the LPL, but let's refresh on how the entire day went by taking a look at our standings across both of our groups, Group A and Group B. It was Europe who really had the best of days, 2-0 for each of their squads atop the group for a 4-0 day for the region. Right behind them, though, you got Megabank Beyond Gaming at 1-0. A couple of 1-1 teams, Loud picking up a win while dropping one as well. DRX, Saigon Buffalo, those are all the teams with wins. Everybody else still hunting for something.
I hate this graphic. Why? As a North American fan, this is the one that gets screenshot. It's going to be all over Twitter. EU,
We're tied for 4th.
EU top of both groups. EG, they had to put us. We're tied with two other teams. They just had to put EG at the end.
I'm gonna go with alphabetical, right? That's alphabetical.
I don't understand this. So the Chiefs.
I think it's Chiefs to most people.
Yeah, so it's
CDE.
alphabetically sorted as if their first letter is C.
CDE.
But
yeah.
that's rude, man.
Yeah, but also if you go to the other side, you've got Easterlys, and then you got Royal Never Give Up, and then you have Dennis Bank, Istanbul. So it's Wildcats. The W obviously comes last, but it's the third name.
Who's putting EG in the dumpster?
Yeah.
Who on Productions, a sleeper agent for EU?
Come on.
Here you go. Here's a refresher of how the whole day went. It was a long day, and we want to thank you all for bearing with us as we had to overcome many obstacles to get these games going and played in the most competitive way possible. It was 8 games of play. Action across the board, really, and I think it's going to shape a lot of our, expectations and perceptions of the teams going forward, especially in the cases where we didn't really know what to expect for a couple of these squads.
Yeah, I think one thing that we saw a lot of was definitely melee supports. So we did see Yuumi bans, but we didn't really see any range from that role. Tons of variety in jungle.
Because this is where the Lux gets
Lots of
murdered.
variety in mid. Like, by no means do I think the meta is even actually trending towards any type of solid direction. Like, this is actually one of the most diverse day ones I've ever seen in terms of the overall types of styles we saw.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think Jungle is one where you're seeing maybe the most kind of like feeling about Graves, Hecarim. Some of the stronger ones. The Maokai coming in, though, shows that there's some diversity still to be seen there. We're not exactly sure where it'll land.
Yeah.
It looked really good this
Vi, Maokai's already been played in multiple roles. We had the Zac mid. I'd be curious to see if that finds its way to the jungle. Sejuani as well is a pick that I think we're probably going to see a lot of. Top lane is the one that almost feels the most uncertain for me. Like, you could really go anywhere as a top laner when it comes to champion picks.
Yeah, we saw Maokai top work. Maokai's already been a flex pick, but then you have Fiora versus Jax in this game. Fiora pulls off like
Nars,
impression with AoE healing in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, this was such a close game. This was back and forth, left and right.
This is a really good one.
The 4th EU game?
I've already lost track.
This is the second Mad Lions one. They, I know people are, I think, a little critical of them online, having a little messy towards the mid game.
Sure.
They jumped out to early leads and then made some mistakes. But honestly, I think day one nerves of playing at Worlds for a team, I can understand some oopsies in some of the mid games that they still were able to come away with. They were never really in danger of losing these games. I don't know if they lost any like inhibitors or anything, if I remember.
Unforgiven
just that one Baron in game
had
1.
14 kills in that game. I don't know if that's going to be
staying.
all of Worlds. Like, 14 is a lot of kills for one game. That might win that pick'em.
Absolutely.
That was a sick replay. Making him look good.
Some solid ass.
Oh, look at that swing. He's dead.
Razor looking good in that replay.
Ooh, we out the Zoe. Forgot about the Zoe. Big Zoe plays in this one.
This was Loud finally showing up. Like, they actually demolished.
They really
The
did.
fastest of the day, I think.
Yo, and if you want to talk about a region or a team that I think is going to be the most momentum-based, I think it'll be a team like Loud. Again, we've kind of already talked about how much support this organization has behind them, but just generally what we know of the Brazilian region, and how there is so much regional pride and fandom. I think that this is a team that's only going to get better as they gain more hype, kind of akin to the way that their Valorant team ascended to becoming world champions.
So how do we feel about the Zach mid? You know, we were talking about
It won.
the
It won.
things
It worked.
in the
It's
meta.
1-0.
Sleeper.
Here's my bet: is that Zach mid. I had earlier said that Sanders would be the highest win rate champion because he get played once
It's
and have
gonna get
100%. I think
picked
Zach mid will never get played again.
Oh, I
looking good
see,
this
I
game.
see.
I'll give you that.
I don't think Zach mid will ever get played again, and so I think it's going to end the tournament with a 100% win rate. It might get played in the jungle, which might ruin Zach's win rate, but.
Yeah, the steps that need to be taken, like the things that need to fall into place to actually play Zach mid at Worlds, it's such a crazy puzzle.
No, you just lock it in again. No one's banning it.
Well, you need to first decide that you want to play it. Your mid
that's
laner
a
has
big
to
hurdle.
practice it, not get banned for troll picking mid lane because no one respects the pick. Then you also have to play it in a scrim, most likely. You need to find out synergies with it. It's just very hard to fit in things that are that far out of the meta. But to your point, you can just lock it in. So in that sense, we could see Rammus next. Is that what you're going
My point is, it's really not that hard to lock in. Is it a good decision? Will most people avoid the pitfall of Zach mid? Probably, but the limitations are
I've
smaller than
missed
you think.
working with you guys.
Yeah, by the way.
It's been 4 whole years since we've been on a desk together.
Yeah,
Wonder why.
And they're like, look at us.
Look at us.
We're in North America.
Who would've thought?
This is the same space as the Summer Split 2018 when we were doing LCS countdown.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Desk used to be here. Anyway, you don't need us going down memory lane. Let's talk about a couple of players who absolutely popped off today. While we've been talking about plenty of teams, I want to highlight this bot lane out of Fnatic. Upset alongside Rux. Mark, these guys were incredible.
Not just in-game, but the behind-the-scenes stories about Fnatic struggling to get their team here. You know, Upset coming in late, Hylissang not being able to make it, so they have to get Rux to come up and actually join them. He wasn't their official sub, that's actually Bean. And so, you know, you have this kind of like late, last minute, everyone's terrified that they're going to be mental boomed, and the two guys you're most worried about absolutely smurfed the 2 games today.
0 deaths. Pentakill, day 1 for Upset.
Yeah.
Across this whole bot lane, I mean, like, you can't ask for a better day 1.
So incredible. And it's one of those situations where if you didn't pay attention to anything, you would have been more right. Like, you just feel like, oh yeah, Fnatic, they have a pretty good roster. Europe's usually pretty
There
good.
you go, 2-0.
Yeah, put them at the top of that group. And then you just,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, that's fine. This is the start they expected.
Yeah, it is very easy to, I mean, we all did, right? We fell down that rabbit hole of like everything's going wrong for that team, right? And so you start building in all of these kind of, you know, fail-safes for like, oh, okay, don't expect much out of them. And they just came in, probably blew what normal expectations would be out of the water anyway. Alrighty, we're gonna be joining Lore and a member of the victorious DRX in Mexico City for a Verizon post-game interview. Check it out.
Thank you very much, Tash. We're back in Mexico for the last interview of the first day of playing, and I'm here with Kingen, victorious against RNG tonight. 안녕하세요. Thank you very much
안녕하세요.
for joining me. Quick take on this game. How was it? It was crazy to watch it, but how was it for you?
아, 정말 보는 입장에서는 정말 엄청난 그런 경기였는데 플레이하는 입장에서 어땠나요? 방금 경기 소감 부탁드립니다.
확실히 RNG다 보니까 좀 힘들었던 것 같고, 그래서 좀 강팀이어서 첫 경기 치고는 좀 요란스러운 경기가 나오지 않았나 생각을 하는데, 그래도 결과적으로 한타를 저희가 좀 다 이겨가지고, 그래서 좀 이긴 것 같고, 굉장히 기분 좋은 것 같아요.
So yeah, I mean, because we were playing against RNG, the game was even more crazier. But at the same time, I think we were able to get this win because we won most of the team fights, almost every team fight. So I'm really happy right now.
I can imagine, especially after what Xiaohu did at Baron. How did you react to the steal?
샤오 선수가 사실 바로는 스틸했잖아요. 그 당시에 선수들 반응은 어땠나요?
그냥 이제 팀원끼리 서로 독려해주는 마음으로 그냥 르블랑이 너무 세다, 뺏길만 했다 이렇게 서로 말했던 것 같아요.
So we just wanted to, you know, keep each other cheered up. So we were like, yeah, Leblanc is so strong, her damage is so strong. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense that she stole the Baron.
Yeah, and you need to stay calm and collected in times like this. And I saw on DRX's Twitter that this is your first Worlds as a starter. And you also said that you were a bit stressed, maybe, about being at the event. Can you elaborate on that, please?
네, 그리고 DRX에서 이제 올린 게시물을 보니까 킹겐 선수가 이제 주전으로서는 첫 월즈여서 어느 정도 좀 압박감을 느끼는 그런 부분도 있고 조금은 스트레스 받는 부분이 있다고 하셨는데 이 점에 대해서 조금 더 설명해 주실 수 있을까요?
스트레스는 일단 하나도 없었던 것 같고, 일단 그러니까 프로 생활에 있어서 가장 큰 무대, 저한테 있어서는 가장 큰 무대에서 새로운 도전을 하는 거라서 굉장히 설레는 마음으로 임하고 있고 딱히 두렵거나 한 부분은 없는 것 같아요. 굉장히 앞으로의 제 행보에 대해서 스스로 굉장히 좀 기대가 되는 부분이 큰 것 같아요.
So I was not actually like stressed out or something like that. I was more like really excited to enter the biggest kind of stage in my entire professional career. So I was like so excited. I couldn't wait what's next to come to find out what is coming up for me. And also I'm just like so excited right now to perform here.
I can imagine, and honestly, amazing first game. Is there any specific players that you're looking to face on the top lane at Worlds?
그러면 이번 월즈에서 또 꼭 만나보고 싶은 탑 라이너가 있을까요?
다음에 또 기회가 되면 브리스 선수랑 한번 더 해보고 싶어요. 오늘은 제가 좀 힘들었어가지고 다음에 만나면 제가 좀 이기는 쪽으로 해보고 싶네요.
So if I get another chance, I want a rematch against Breathe because
Yay.
I was actually getting bullied in lane. So I want to win lane next time.
Well, hopefully you can get the revenge. For now, 인터뷰 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
Jisun, thank you so much for the translation. And Dash, back to you.
Thank you so much, Lord. Not satisfied with just the win. He wants the rematch so he can win the lane as well. It has been a marathon of a day for us here, getting through 8 games. And tomorrow, we've got 8 more hitting your screens. We're going to kick things off there, as you can see, with Fnatic versus Det FM. Followed it up with Evil Geniuses before Loud Saigon Buffalo up against Isurus Gaming in game number 3. I'm not going to read out all 8. I'm not going to lose that breath, but I am curious from you guys if there's one matchup in particular that you see in front of you for tomorrow that you want to put a spotlight on.
So I assume people think that we're going to be NA homers and say one of the EG games. I'm actually going to say Mad Lions versus RNG.
That was one I was looking at. I like it.
I think in terms of group standing, that might be the single most important game of the day. Mad being 2-0, RNG already dropping 1 game. If they lose that one and they're 0-2 and Mad Lions is 3-0, you know,
It pretty much locks RNG into 3rd.
Or-
because the 2 teams that you've lost to are the supposed
you would have to have a better
other
game
competitive
score
teams.
to get over them because you'd be lost the head-to-head. So that to me is actually such a huge game.
Yeah, I like it. I like that call out. I mean, to be the NA homer for a second, it's going to be that Evil Geniuses Loud, but that's just because Evil Geniuses needs to start showing us something, right? I know they only played 1 game today, so it's not, you know, all doom and gloom, but you got to start putting some wins together, especially against other teams that have picked up wins so far in their group. All right, that's going to do it for us here for the first day of Worlds 2022 play. And so on behalf of myself, the casters, the entire Worlds broadcast crew, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow for more Worlds. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, be good to each other. Good night.
Quick little day, huh?
Yeah, really fast.
Yeah.
I see 12 hours?
Burn through that one.
13 hours?
Guarantee
Easy peasy.